Hey, my name is Logan, and I'm a victim of Hypixel Skyblock. I started playing the game back in late 2019, you know, back when the most endgame island was the end, and everyone wanted a 50 million coin Midas sword. Back in my day, the Crimson Isle never actually existed. It was a much less impressive looking build. It was called the Blazing Fortress. And don't even get me started on the boss loot system, it was hot garbage. You could be a sweat in full emerald armor and a tsunami bow doing all the damage to the magma boss, and then nope, some Jimmy takes the Ember Rod and runs away. At the time I was playing on a co-op with 3 other buddies. This was back when I had friends, of course. And then that all came crashing down when one of my co-op mates decided to let the voices take over one day and grief our entire island. Damn you, Evan. So after that happened, like any rational people, we decided to quit the game for a little bit, and since then the game has had a couple updates. Yeah, just a couple. Of course some updates were larger than others, like not all of them can be massive great content updates like the glacial tunnels. Unfortunately, just like every other game, there has to be some not so great updates as well. So let's slap them all on a tier list. If you get through the entire video and notice that I miss a couple big updates, no I didn't, and you don't have to tell me about it. Unless you want to, of course. I mean, comments are always good for the algorithm. Now, after hearing that, you might have a couple questions, one of which being, hey Logan, are you stealing ideas from Powliner? No, you have it all wrong. Well, actually, you're kinda right. You have to understand how the YouTuber mindset works. Like, look at this, look at all the views it got him. Amateurs get inspired and experts steal. And boy, I'm telling you, I am definitely no amateur. Plus, I'm not even copying. Look at all the effort he put into his tier lists. I'm literally just using tiermaker.com. I just noticed that the Chesto Berry kinda looks like the Discord logo. Speaking of that, you should totally join my Discord! Our Discord is the #1 iKalazar community server, and not because it's the only one, but because we are that good. I mean, we don't do Slayer carries or anything, but we can sure as hell rot your brain. Alright, let's get it started. So I know this isn't technically an update, but it would be a crime if I didn't include the literal release of the game. Skyblock started off as a new Hypixel game that everyone was willing to try, you know, back in the day when it wasn't always trying to replicate old school RuneScape. For many people, this marked the very beginning of their worst days, including myself. F tier. Then, 2 days later on June 13th, the game opened to players that didn't have ranks, which honestly just meant that the servers were a laggy mess. A tier though. Most of my friends were nons. Then on July 2nd, version 0.5 came out, which introduced a fishing revamp and also a few achievements. This is pretty much around the time where I started playing the game. After this time, you can no longer fish up things like name tags or horse armor anymore, and Skyblock achievements were the first completely useless goal introduced by the admins. Little did we know that there was many more to come. D tier, lame ass update. Just a little over a week later, you can now visit your friends. Cool. I think. And they also decided to fix the absolutely terrible loot system. The game used to decide who got the drops based on who was in the lobby the longest and who could pearl onto the item first. D tier again, I can no longer leech Ember Rods. August 2nd was a big day for Skyblock. Patch 0.7, they introduced the most challenging area of the game yet. The End Island. A lot happened when the End Island released. The prices of the aspect of the End plummeted, Ember Rods became useless, and mobs had more health, did more damage, and dropped better gear than we've ever seen. Marco was released, along with the Paint Room. This is one of my favorite features. Now I can draw PPs in solitude while I'm alone with my dark thoughts. Technoblade also released this banger of a video. It was just an all-around great time for the game. Easy S tier, very big nostalgia. October 10th brought us the Slayer update, which included Revenant Horrors, Tarantula Broodfathers, and Sven Packmasters. These were definitely some of the hardest bosses that the game had to offer. Especially the Sven Packmasters, you couldn't dream to beat these dogs unless you were crippling them in water. This is also around the time when they introduced bank upgrades, which implies that this was around the 50 mil Midas era as well. This update brought the new banking limit from 50 million coins all the way up to 1 billion, with a B. They also made the Skyblock API public. I don't really know or care what this means, but the mod devs were probably hooting and hollering about it. A tier. Slayers and mod data became pretty important later on. On December 17th, patch 0.75 came out, introducing the Winter Island. Along with the spooky event, the Season of Jerry Island was now open for a couple hours every 5 days. It introduced quite a few new items, as well as a new form of gambling and gifts. B tier. I can only experience the update once every 5 days. That's kinda lame. 2019 has come to a close, and this is what the rankings look like for the first year of Skyblock's release. The pretty good start to updates led to moderate success, but little did the admins know that this would only be the beginning. On February 21st, we were given a pet update. Skyblock must have realized that they weren't keeping the attention spans of the young kids, so they went the Roblox route and added pets. This obviously resulted in a massive damage boost for all players. They also introduced quick crafting into the game, and this is the best quality of life feature we've seen since the personal compactor. A tier. The auction house was created to be an easy system for players to trade around good gear and important items, but the devs started to notice that it was being flooded with weird materials and niche items instead of gear. So on March 10th, the admins added a bazaar system to the game. The bazaar allowed players to easily trade around items, of course complicating the economy even further. This was also around the time that the NPC shop limit was added, which was absolutely terrible for Iron Man profiles. Oh wait, they didn't exist yet. B tier. The bazaar looks useful, but I've never used it as an Iron Man.
What could possibly go wrong? June 6th. Things go very wrong.
0.7.10 was a massive improvement to quality of life, especially for farmers at the time. They added sacks, the personal compactor, and even the replenish enchantment. To say that this update was targeted for the Great Potato War would be underplaying it. This was terrible news for Technoblade during the war, but to be honest, in the long run, this was absolutely amazing. We could pay so much less attention to the game and still be just as efficient, no, even more efficient than before. A tier. I'd say this one aged very well. July 7th, version 0.8 brought us the Catacombs. Oof. Massive update. And honestly, you either love them or you hate them. There's no in between. This was probably the biggest content update that the game has seen since the end, or maybe even just since release. On release, there was only 3 floors of the Catacombs, of course including the entrance, so I guess you could say there were 4, with plans to make 10 in total. As you can also see, that didn't work out so well. It was incredibly unique, with dozens of new features that threw off the balancing of the game completely. S tier. Big dungeon fan right here. On August 13th, they revamped the hub. That's about it. Pretty cool. C tier. Regular update. Oh boy, here we are. The pay to win update. You can now vote in your favorite politicians from the baseless promises they make, just like real life. And on top of that, there are only 2 things certain in life. In-game monetization and all Pyro mains being furries. And looking at booster cookies, you can now theoretically buy Skyblock coins with real life money. And some people were very upset at this. All the rage has mostly died down since then. People are mostly focused on the absolute price of the cookies now. Isn't it crazy to think that these used to be 400k at one time? Obligated F tier. I am financially ruined forever. October 6th, version 0.96, they created the Iron Man game mode. Do I need to say anything more? I want my life back. Babe, wake up. It's November 17th and floor 7 is out. The final floor of the Catacombs has been released. And no, it's not floor 10, because the admins decided that 7 was enough. Floor 7 holds the most impressive boss fights this game has ever seen, by far. Yes, boss fights plural, with an S. There's 4 whole boss fights in floor 7. I've never played it, but it looks really cool. Just off of that, I think I can give it at least an A tier, hypothetically of course. 2020 was without a doubt Skyblock's peak year, with the amount of content released and the active player base they had. But it's halfway through 2024 right now, and in the timeline, we're just moving on to 2021. So we've still got a while to go. Though the updates definitely started to slow down from here on out. The admins were probably busy watching VTubers and questioning their lives. Relatable. January 15th, version 0.11, the Dwarven Mines released. Yep, yet another massive update to kick off the year. Mithril, the Heart of the Mountain, commissions, and a complete overhaul to just about every single mining stat you can think of. It was actually kinda crazy how much stuff they added in this one update, the only issue being that it was far too grindy, especially on release. B tier. Moving on to nearly the end of March, the admins decided to make Dungeons the sequel, but ridiculously hard. Pretty much every dungeon floor is the same, except all of the mobs are now stat sticks. That's okay though, they give more loot and XP. True damage on Dead Warrior isn't real. True damage on Dead Warrior can't hurt me. B tier again, kinda seems a little bit low effort. Version 0.11.5, Void Gloom Slayer. After many months of every Slayer boss being tossed around by literally anyone and everyone, a certain group of mobs decided not to be so much of a pushover anymore. The boss is absolutely ridiculous regarding both gameplay and stats. It is by far the most fun Slayer mechanically. So far, I've killed 1,000 baby tier Void Glooms and I've still got thousands more ahead of me. Easy A tier. On July 14th, the devs woke up and decided that we needed even more mining content and added the Crystal Hollows. The Hollows is yet another massive mining island, but this time you can actually play Minecraft this time, breaking and placing blocks and stuff. You all know what this place is, and I'm sure you've spent hundreds of hours here, so I don't see a reason to get into it. Unironic S tier, this has been one of my favorite content updates. Outside of the bingo event releasing later that year, which I don't want to talk about, that was about it for 2021. A few pretty big updates were released this year, but honestly that was about it. Definitely a bunch of mining, but I think it kept most of us entertained throughout 2021. On to 2022. Remember how I said that I've never done a Floor 7 run? Well, here's Master Mode Floor 7. Shortly after the Stranded game mode was released, which was of course quickly forgotten by every developer, Master Mode Floor 7 came out. And as far as I've seen on Refraction's live streams, this was the only one that saw a significant change in gameplay. I mean, hell, they added a whole new boss fight at the very end. I don't want to spoil it just in case any of you haven't seen it and or still care enough to get spoiled, but it's probably the most impressive thing I've seen on a Minecraft server, period. But it's still gonna sit comfy in the B tier, because it's just way too late game for most people to experience it. Whoa, patch 0.13, Crimson Isle. I actually thought this came out before M7, but here we are. This place was pretty big, like bigger than every other island combined type big. And even to this day, I still don't really understand how most of the stuff there works. There's just too much content. Such a first world problem, I know. From Blaze Slayer to the Kudra fight, there's just so much here to learn. Obligated S tier, I guess. Following the release of the Crimson Isle, there was a lot of minor patches. And I mean, a lot of minor patches. In other words, nothing happened for quite a long time, until September 28th, where the devs finally gave the community a way to quantify progression in the game. No more arguing over the improvised weights calculated by bots. We now have a way to bully each other over a definite number given to us by the admins. C tier. It was okay. Nothing too special. Wait a second. What's this? Not even a full month later, a Kudra revamp? To put it simply, this update made the boss much more interesting to fight. Of course, as always, the community immediately broke the fight in several ways and cheesed it very shortly after it was released. Powliner made quite a bit of content on it, and I can't really say it any better than he did. A tier. Last year was about mining, and this one was focused on combat. Oh my brother in Christ, what could the next year possibly hold for us? February 14th, version 0.18, the Garden Update. You bind 2 keys to walk left and destroy block, and just hold down those 2 buttons for thousands of hours. Perfect way to spend my Valentine's Day. Easy D tier. Very boring and repetitive. Wow, what a way to start the year. And a little after the garden, they decided to add the Rift. It was a pretty big gamble. It's one of the most unique updates they've ever decided to add. They basically just added a whole new alternate dimension to Skyblock, allowing people to relive the Minecraft grind game experience. And man, it is a weird and wacky place. And guess what? Many people dislike this update too, just as much as the garden. Maybe it's because they don't get to transfer their overpowered gear to the Rift. Honestly, hold that L. It hurts to do this, but C tier. Mid-update. What's that? Skyblock hasn't had enough bad updates this year? After the garden released, inflation ran wild. I mean, you could just blame the garden for the current price of booster cookies at this point. And the admin's solution to stop people from AFK farming on the garden was to have these little spawns of Satan appear on your garden. Needless to say, people were not happy. Again, for like the 3rd time this year. D tier. Not F tier, because pests drop a pretty good amount of crops, which help new players like me. I just realized I swapped these 2 around, but honestly, who cares? Ouch. That was not a great year. You'd really have to be an idiot to get into the game during this time. Ah, damn it. Here we are, dawn of the most recent update, the Glaciite Tunnels. I'm gonna consider this the most recent large update at the time of this video coming out, because the Chocolate Factory is not by any means a major update. Don't worry though, the admins broke their streak of terrible updates with this one, because this one was really good. You know, as if mining didn't have enough content again, they added a whole new island full of new items and features. Again. Honestly, I'm still working on discovering everything there is to this update, but so far, I've barely got any complaints. B tier, because we've already had too many mining updates and A tier looks too full. And so here are the final rankings. If you agree with it, that's cool, and if you disagree with anything, you're wrong. To be completely fair, this is a very top-heavy tier list. Most of the big updates have been great. Good job, Hypixel. Anyways, I'm all done here. I'm gonna go f*** off to the garden now. Subscribe, like, and comment something for the algorithm, or I just might have to put you in the notorious F tier.